Okay.
All right, well, good afternoon.
Hello.
This is Dr. Peter Steinmetz, and this morning I was...
What's today's date?
23rd of... No, 22nd of December.
Of 2014.
Of 2014. And today I was taking a flight with my family to go on Christmas vacation to Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport. And while I was in the gate, or past the gate, and proceeding down the line to the airplane and about to board, I was in a discussion with a fellow traveler. And he asked me, he was discussing about what was going on. He had been detained by the TSA actually to have a random search there at the gate beyond the search that they had already done at the checkpoint. And we got into a discussion about this, and in the course of the discussion, I asked him, well, what do you think are the odds of dying in a terrorist attack? I wanted to point out to him, of course, that the odds of dying in a terrorist attack are about 1 in 20 million years of life, and that this you're much more likely actually to die in your bathtub in any given year. That's about 1 in 800,000.
Okay.
But because I mentioned the word terrorist, which is apparently a forbidden term now, it's on some sort of a blacklist, even though I was just using it in a query, I was not making any threat of any kind, I was simply asking a question of this gentleman. The captain then decided that I had to be thrown off the flight, and despite the appeal to the local people at Delta Airlines, they refused to rebook me for the flight today. So they did rebook me on a flight tomorrow morning, so I will finally be able to get up to visit my relatives. But I think it's a very sad day actually in this country when you can't even have a discussion about something involving the word terrorist, I guess, or bomb probably is another one. You can't even have a discussion, okay, about the TSA and how ineffective they are and what a waste of taxpayer time and money they are, because you can't mention the words that are necessary to such a discussion. It's an attempt essentially to enforce some sort of groupthink. That these are some sort of forbidden words. So we're going to be down at the airport this afternoon now to talk to people a bit more about this.
And we have signs?
We have signs that we're going to have on display and some handouts that show the basic facts that you just aren't very likely, when it comes down to it, to actually die in a terrorist attack.
Now, also, you had made a demonstration to the airport previously a few months back.
That's correct.
And you were arrested, and they did drop all the charges.
There were no charges.
There were no
I was
charges.
never charged.
Yeah, they just arrested you as a form of demonstration.
They didn't like my demonstration, and as a consequence, the TSA actually now has placed me on the SS list. I am a selectee, so I am given special pat-downs every time, despite the fact I was simply exercising my First Amendment rights to protest what I think is an egregious abuse of our government.
So you actually were at the airport and you had gone through your second search and then you'd asked for identification of other TSA agents while you were there?
Yes, I asked. Other TSA agents are, while on duty, required to identify themselves if they are on duty and they are asked to do so by a citizen. They need to provide you with their last name, their badge number, and their rank. Many of them attempt not to do this, actually. So I like to, identify who they are so that we know who we're dealing with as citizens, and who are, essentially, they are working for us as the taxpayers. So I like to identify them, and I was identifying them, basically. Pretty polite about it, actually.
Right. Yeah. And then so when you went through the line, there was another person. So this must have gotten somebody angry or gotten the hive a little bit more.
I was told by the person who asked me to leave the airplane initially. I was told that the TSA had requested that I be pulled off the plane.
Okay, and so they actually pulled you off the plane after you had already gotten your seat, essentially.
Yeah, I had sat down and eaten.
And you're sitting there with your wife and your child.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
And so now the stewardess asked you to get off the plane.
Right. Yes. So I asked them, who is this? Who wants to speak to me off the plane? And they told me I was a TSA agent.
But didn't you take some prodding to get that information out of them? Yeah,
they didn't want to tell me at first, so I had to explain to them that, look, I don't generally just get off planes to talk to strangers.
Right.
Right. So finally they said the TSA was out there. So I started to leave, and then I thought, this isn't quite right. So I told them that, no, actually, thank you. I'll wait for law enforcement to come and ask me to leave.
Okay.
At that point, someone on the plane claimed to be law enforcement and stated that he was going to detain me and make me leave the plane. He refused to identify himself.
Interesting.
Yes, actually. And he refused to state under what crime he suspected I was committing, which required me to leave the plane.
So you asked him a question. What question was that specifically?
I asked him, do you have reasonable suspicion that I am about to or have committed a crime?
And what did he say?
He said yes.
And did he
And then
allow?
I said, which one? And he said, I'm not going to tell you.
Ooh, so we have secret courts now.
Well, or at least secret detentions.
Yes. Okay. So then after that, so you said no, I'm not going to leave.
Well, at that point, actually, I was having a discussion with him about it. I said, okay, that's fine, but I do want to identify you, so I'm going to have my son take a picture of you.
Right.
And he didn't want to do that. At that point, the captain came back and said, I'm the captain of the plane, and it's my ship, and I want you to leave my ship.
Good thing you weren't in the flight.
Yeah. Fortunately, they didn't have to land the flight or something,
Right.
For no reason really at all.
And so then after he asked you to leave,
He asked
which
me to
you
leave,
did.
so I left. He
With your family?
He owns the plane. Oh, I mean, he's in charge of the plane for the owners.
Right.
So I left.
With
And I
your
got
family?
off. Right, with my family. And then I asked, who was that person who said they were law enforcement? They would not identify it for me.
Mm-hmm.
I asked what was the name of the stewardess that came back and said TSA was out there, because when I got out, there was no TSA there.
Mm-hmm.
I asked her who was that. They wouldn't tell me. So I actually called the police myself and asked them to come down, because my feeling was I had been illegally detained by someone.
Right.
And I wanted them to investigate. They declined to investigate. The person in charge of Delta Airlines at Sky Harbor Airport had some very curious questions. He was very vague about whether he could rebook us. He thought that since his claim was I didn't understand why I had been pulled off the plane, I kept asking him, well, what is it you want me to agree not to say?
So he wanted to get you in some kind of contract.
Right. And I asked him, I said, okay, if your policy of your airline is you can't say certain things or something, I guess, okay, fine, I'll try to obey your policies. What are they?
Yeah, let's have a list.
Yeah, and he wouldn't tell me what it was. So finally he said, well, we can't rebook you today.
Because you didn't give him a blanket statement that you were...
Well, I didn't even know what my blanket statement should be. Right? I mean, if you don't tell me what the words are,
right.
or that I can't say, I had to tell him, look, my view is the TSA is engaged in an egregious violation of all of our Fourth Amendment rights to freedom from unreasonable search and seizures, and that I am probably going to occasionally say that I think the TSA is a waste of time and money.
Which they are.
And violating our rights.
And so what are the numbers as far as TSA? What are they actually? What's the numbers as far as the safety value of the TSA?
Well, as far as we know, it's almost nothing. In fact, it's probably negative safety in the sense that by displacing people off of short-haul flights, they actually probably kill 500 people a year because they drive instead of flying a short distance because of the hassles of the TSA. And as you know, driving is about 167 times more dangerous than flying.
And so this number has the short-haul flights have gone down substantially since the TSA has been implemented?
Right. They've
What's
dropped
that?
about 6 or 7% of overall airplane traffic.
And that equates out to 500 deaths roughly.
Well, then
statistically.
times the risk of being killed and so
Yeah,
on. You work out about 500 lives per year.
Okay, and then you're a researcher?
That's right. Yeah, I'm a brain scientist and I study statistics. That's what I do for a living. I run statistics. I'm pretty data driven.
Okay, so these are all information you can look it up, and one of the articles is on Reason.
Reason magazine has a very good article entitled "How Afraid Should We Be of Terrorist Attacks?"
Okay, and then here's the sign we're going to be making.
We're going to be making and showing this sign at the Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport this afternoon, probably starting around 1:30.
Okay, well, great. Bam. Boom, chugga-lugga.
All right.
Boom. Okay.